Sarah, good to go on your side? Awesome. All right, well, welcome everybody. It will call to order the special meeting of Thursday, August 8th, 2024. Please join me for a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Assembly of the City and Borough of Sitka would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional first people of Sitka. With gratitude, we proceed on Tlingit Ani. Sarah, roll call, please.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Present.
Mr. Mosier,
Here.
Mr. Pike,
Here.
Mr. Yestad,
Here.
Mr. Christensen,
Here.
Ms. Carlson,
Here.
and Mr. Celine.
Here. Thank you. Chris, thanks for being online. If I happen to miss you, please feel free to jump in. And I understand you are still actively working. So if you need to pass your time tonight, I do understand that as well. But thank you for participating. So tonight we are gathered for a municipal attorney application interview. We do have one applicant this evening that we will be interviewing. Fortunately, we have a new HR director as well, so you don't have to hear me talk about this again. We get to turn it over to Josh, and Josh gets to talk about our festivities tonight. So I appreciate you being here, Josh, and jumping in so quickly on all of this. Today's what, day 5 or 6 for you? So no, we really appreciate the help on this. It's good to have that role filled. So the floor is yours, please.
Joshua Brantuver, Human Resources Director for the City and Borough of Sitka. Good evening, Mayor, Assembly members, Administrator, Sarah. Very glad to be here tonight and to support through this vital undertaking as we work to select a municipal attorney. Earlier this week, I provided a couple of read-ahead documents, one of which is some proposed acceptable interview questions that are just a guide that the Assembly can use at their discretion. I know in previous meetings, there's been a question about the consistency between interviewing, and the general guidance is that we try to be as consistent as we can, but also as the interview progresses, anything that you naturally would like to ask as a result of an answer or anything else that pops up is also recommended and free to choose to ask as well. With that said, the second document that was provided was some general guidance on questions to avoid, mostly related to protected classes and making sure that we are not asking anything that would potentially set us up for liability related to discrimination of an applicant. And if you guys have any questions about that, I'm here to support and guide as needed tonight.
Great, thank you. And any questions for Josh about tonight's proceedings? I know that we all did this just not too long ago, so we're fairly familiar with it at this point, but. All right, then Sarah, if we could get our candidate, Rachel Jones, on the line, please.
There are numbers of. Yep. Okay. Thanks. We'll see you soon.
Mayor, do you mind
Please.
if we could sit Josh over here if he doesn't want to stay at the table to provide guidance?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you now.
Excellent. Can you see me as well?
No, we can't, but I think we got Grant working on Grant stuff.
Okay, well, I can hear and see you all just fine.
Well, as we get that figured out, Rachel, thank you for joining us this evening. We have had a chance to review the application that you've submitted. We appreciate that. As you know, we are interested in hiring a municipal attorney to help guide us through to the future here. Do you have any questions about tonight's process before we begin?
I don't think so. I've been through it once before, interviewed in 2016. So unless there's been some major changes, I'm familiar with the process.
No, the process pretty much the same. So we'll as soon as we can see you here, we'll get it passed off. Josh, did you have anything, an introduction with Rachel or?
Hi, Rachel. This is Joshua Brantuver. I am the Human Resources Director. I know you've been mostly communicating with Sarah. Just want to introduce myself. And once we have you on video, we will proceed. In the room here, we have Mayor Eisenbeis, Deputy Mayor Mosher, Vice Deputy Mayor Pike, and Assembly members Tor Christensen, JJ Carlson, and Scott Saline. On the Zoom, we have Assembly member Yastad. And now we have you on video. There we go.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you, and nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
All right, yes, now we can see you. Works out much better that way. And
Sure does.
so I'll turn it over to JJ for our first question of the evening. Assembly, we'll be just doing a round robin like we had before. We'll just start with JJ, go around the room and ask questions until we're satisfied this evening. So JJ, please.
Mr. Mayor. Hi, Rachel.
Hi, JJ.
Please summarize your relevant background, including work and educational experience as it relates to what this municipal attorney position will be.
Sure. So I'll probably do that in 3 parts, I think. My kind of education experience outside of Sitka, my work experience in Sitka, and then my work with the city specifically. I went to Georgetown for undergraduate school, which gave me the really amazing opportunity to intern for the House of Representatives in a role that's not too dissimilar from the one you're hiring for. I worked for the 2 attorneys that provided advice to the House Committee on Education and Labor. So that was really, really interesting position, especially interesting because you're dealing with 2 legislative bodies there. And I got to advise the Reconciliation Committee for a couple of House and Senate bills that were moving forward. Kind of confirmed my interest in going to law school because I found that job really interesting and exciting. I started law school at NYU and then transferred to Berkeley, mostly because I found myself drawn toward practical work more than kind of the really heavy academic work in the classroom. And it became really clear that doing your practical work where you intended to practice was kind of more important, I think, than, at where your internships were at the undergraduate level. So transferred back to Berkeley and maxed out my practical credits, doing law practicums, specifically with the East Bay Community Law Center, doing municipal level law with them through their welfare clinic. I was representing clients who have been rejected for benefits in front of administrative law judges for Alameda County. And then toward the end of my time in law school, wanted to check out the judiciary as well. I interned with the House, not the House of Representatives, the U.S. District Court in Oakland, where I got to work on some really interesting cases as well. Decided that what I wanted to do right after law school was continue that judicial experience, clerking in a trial court, which is kind of unusual. Most people want the kind of fancier, more prestigious appellate court work. But the work in the trial court is really the stuff that's impacting most people's day-to-day lives. Most cases are not appealed. They're dealt with at the trial court level. Interviewed with Justice Carpenetti for 60 positions, I think, all over Alaska. It was one interview for the whole court system. Got a call from Judge George here in Sitka and moved to Sitka sight unseen. That was 2012, so it was 12 years ago. My legal work in town has varied, kind of coming in and out of maternity leaves as brought 3 children into the world. Most of it has been in the court system. I was there for 3 years, initially as a law clerk, and then you grow into the deputy magistrate position, and then as a magistrate judge for the Sitka court system. We can talk about, if you're interested, kind of how broad that was, because we don't have counties here. So the magistrate is covering city level, state level, and the things that elsewhere counties would do. And then I've also passed the bar in California. So a lot of my, a lot of my work has been contract work for firms that I either worked with previously in California when we were living down there, or that I've come to do freelance work for. And that included a school district in Los Angeles. So a firm that was the council for a school district, which has a lot of similar municipal type issues, although specific to the school system. So labor law, wage and hour cases, a lot of reasonable accommodations, claims, those sorts of things. And then in terms of my municipal law within Sitka, I temped for the city when Mr. Hansen was a temporary city attorney as well back in 2016. I handled, I think the municipal attorney's office was still doing first-time DUIs at that time. So I prosecuted DUIs, responded to public records requests, and handled a really large internal investigation of some employee complaints against a supervisor for the city. And then more recently, leading up to Mr. Hansen's retirement, I was doing some public policy work, drafting ordinances for him. I got one of those projects complete and the other is on pause, pending you all hiring an in-house attorney.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's
Hello.
Scott Steen. I don't have a scripted question here, so this one's going to be kind of scrambled. But so like currently in Sitka right here, under our home rule stuff, the city assembly may direct the city attorney to help citizens write a petition. And like for Sitka with contractual agreements, like reserving your vacation a year from now and then booking it, and then having a municipality vote that they don't want X number of tourists to come to town on the Love Boat and be on buses and stuff. Could you explain the difficulties in a lawyer or the city attorney writing that at the assembly's request, only to have in the back of their mind having to build a legal case to defend that vote against Love Boat interests that want it to be unrestricted access to Sitka with a couple million buses?
Sure. I think what we're getting at there is kind of the difference between, ordinances that the assembly passes and referendums or initiatives that are brought by the citizens. I've followed along with the attempts to get an initiative passed for the cruise ship situation. I lived in downtown Sitka myself. I'm one house up from Lincoln Street, but then also involved in the tourism industry. So I kind of understand how fraught it is on both sides. As for the specific issues that have kept coming up, I'd need to dig in and do legal research on them. But in terms of understanding the initiative process, the scope of, what's the assembly's duties, what's the administrator's duties the attorney's duties on behalf of the assembly. When I was first at the Sitka court as a law clerk, I was involved in doing a lot of legal research and writing for an initiative case here in Sitka. That was the one regarding the Sawmill Cove Industrial Park. It was, I think it was SRG, Sitkans for Responsible Government, against the city and another defendant. And that case had been ongoing, I think, for about 4 years before I came into it. So it had gone all the way up on appeal to the Supreme Court, been remanded back down to the trial court. And I was involved in a lot of pretty hefty legal research and writing about Sitka's initiative process, initiatives in the state of Alaska generally. When is an initiative ripe for kind of pre-review before it's on a ballot? And that was actually the issue that got it remanded. The law had been one way before the case went up to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court issued a decision, I think, on an initiative out of Kenai, if I'm remembering correctly. The law changed, and so they sent it back to the Superior Court to assess it in light of the new law. And there were a lot of issues that may come up this time as well. You know, is the initiative exceeding legislative authority? Is it stepping on, you know, administrative powers? Is it administrative or legislative? All of those sorts of issues I've done before, specifically in the context of a voter initiative that was brought in Sitka. So while I can't speak to what the specific outcome might be there, I haven't read it as a lawyer. I've read it as a concerned citizen. Certainly happy to dive into those issues and give you all advice, and I believe I have the background to do so.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Tim Pike. So you've been in Sitka for a little while. What have you seen the role of the municipal attorney to be, and what would you anticipate how you would see the role of the municipal attorney in the community?
Sure. I think there's kind of two pieces to that. Is what is the scope of the role, and that's to advise you all primarily, and to provide support to the city administrator as well. In navigating kind of all the possibilities, right? I would not be, if I was in this role, the person making policy decisions, deciding what is best for Sitka. You all have been elected to do that. You know, but within that discretion, you need to know, is this idea legal? Are we running up against federal issues, state issues? What does our code say? How do we navigate? If we've got options, you know, A, B, C, and D, what are the barriers with A? What are the barriers with B? What are the barriers with C? What are the barriers with D? So that you can perform your cost benefit analysis from a very informed position. You know, not so different from kind of the law clerk role in the court. You know, the judge is on the bench all day. He doesn't have the time to do that heavy legal research and writing. He's actually holding court, taking in facts the same way you take in public comment, and needs that support staff, needs those expertise to take, you know, complicated case law, complicated code, you know, federal and state laws that might be preempting city code, put all those pieces together so that you've got a really solid framework from which to do your policy decision making.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening. Kind of a two-part similar question, two-part question here. We had a previous applicant, you know, I don't think this is going to be relevant for you, but we had a previous applicant
Sure.
decide they wanted more of a hybrid work, that they didn't really want to live in Sitka. I understand you do. But do you anticipate this job being a full-time 9 to 5 plus in the office, or what are your expectations for employment with the municipality?
Sure. Yes, this is the short answer. I'm expecting a full-time job. Finally, we got our youngest child into full-time childcare, which was not an easy task in Sitka, as many of you know. And so she'll be turning 4 in September, and she'll be at Mount Edgecombe Preschool, full days, starting pretty soon here. And so I do anticipate it being a full-time position. You know, understanding that there's, you know, many late evenings when meetings are scheduled and meetings go long. You know, having some flexibility to work with family life, and, you know, if I stay super late on a Tuesday night, being able to, you know, set aside 2 hours to attend a school field trip, that sort of thing is something that's important to me. Being able to work with you all about which specific hours that might be. And then also we have family on the East Coast. That's where I am now. And so I certainly don't anticipate a remote position, but being able to say, hey, visiting family, you know, by the time we get there and the kids adjust to time change, visiting family for a month, can I work remotely while we're doing that, and having that on the table as an option, just so we don't have to sacrifice those family relationships that can be so hard to maintain from Sitka, is something I'd like to have a conversation about.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, Rachel.
Hi.
I'm Kevin Mosher. It's good to meet you. I would just ask, what are your strengths as an attorney?
Sure. I think one of my biggest strengths, and it kind of surprised me, I think, on the bench to find it is an ability to really communicate really complex ideas to a wide array of audiences. One of the kind of early things that happened at the court as a law clerk, I think I was writing an order, maybe it was denying bail. It was something kind of straightforward. But the language I was using was kind of California lawyer language, heretofores and all those kind of superfluous words. And Judge George said, in a great order, I understand what you're saying, but Mr. So-and-so, the defendant in this case, has a sixth grade reading level. And he has a right to know why he is staying in jail. And so I don't need to understand this. I need Mr. Defendant to understand this. So you need to go back and write this in a way that he will understand. And really kind of leaning into the fact that you need to know your audience. As a lawyer, you're dealing with very complex things, but members of the public, your client, defendants in the court system, and even, educated people who are not proficient in legalese, really meeting them on their level and explaining what are very complex concepts, essentially normal people words, wherever that normal is for your audience. I think that's a skill I've really developed well throughout my career, and have found to be a huge benefit.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Tor Christensen. I'm actually going to follow up on Scott's question because I didn't hear an answer. He asked, it wasn't so much what the legal validity of that particular or initiative, but more the case of what, like say in our code right now, we can direct the city attorney to help. And it's more the question is that a good idea? Our current contracted attorney says that's a bad idea, period, to ever do that.
Sure.
And, I think that as a full-time city attorney, you're not going to be insulated like that. And so what are your opinions on that, on the idea of writing something that you may have to defend or try and actually push down, depending on what the city is after, being involved in the writing process?
Sure. I think I understand where your outside counsel is coming from, in that if you help citizens draft an initiative and then they don't like how it turns out, and then you've got the citizens suing you and your attorney was the person who drafted it, it gets kind of complex about who are you really representing. Are you representing that citizens group that's putting forth the initiative, or are you representing the city as a whole? And so I think that would be a fairly complicated discussion between me in this role and you all as assembly members of how that might play out. And I would need to look into the specifics of that more to form a strong opinion about it. I'd say I'm open to it more than outside counsel might be. I've got, no problem writing things that need to be defended. I've had cases that have gone on to appeal to a higher level court than I was at. But I think that would be really a kind of a question to do the research on, look at examples of how that has gone for municipalities that help draft citizen initiatives, how those cases have turned out when there has been a lawsuit following that, and work with you all to understand both the risks and benefits of doing so. And if you concluded that the best option was indeed to have me help draft that initiative, I'd be more than happy to do so. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I just, like I said, it seemed like before it went into a discussion of that actual initiative, and I'm was thinking about the process of any initiative, whether or not it's a good idea to have the attorney involved and how you would handle that.
Yeah, I think it would be a proceed with caution and kind of understand both the risks and the benefits, and then having communicated those to you all, following your direction on the matter.
Chris, you are, if you're available, it is your time for the floor.
Yeah, no, I'll just go on to the next one here. What are your areas you would like to increase proficiency as an attorney?
That is a great question. So thinking about this job specifically, my areas of proficiency, especially land use law. Lately, I've been involved in the housing stuff in Sitka a lot. I've only dealt with the relationships between city and state government and the tribe in the context of ICWA cases coming before the court, dealing with the Indian Child Welfare Act and placement. And I think I could use some better brushing up on the areas of jurisdiction between the tribe and the municipality, and how those pieces work together. Because again, I've only really seen that relationship from the court side, which is just pretty narrow.
Okay, great. Thank you.
JJ,
Thank you.
hot seat.
How would you interact with the media to foster a truthful and positive image for the community in your role?
Terms of interacting with the media, my experience has been usually the lawyer advises the public relations person, or the department head who's providing a statement, and I think reviewing materials that are going out to make sure that they're accurate, and that they're communicating things clear. I think that kind of gets back to the communication issue I was talking about. Who is your audience, and making sure that materials are taking complex legal ideas when they're trying to communicate those ideas, and that they really are in comprehensible language and not just reciting a piece of code or just reciting a quote from a case in a way that just falls flat with people. You stick a piece of case law in front of people and their eyes kind of glaze over. But making sure that things are communicated in a way that is comprehensible and engaging for the public, so that people really understand what the work is that the city is doing.
What about specifically with social media? Like we put out a lot of notices and announcements. Do you think that would be part of the role of a municipal attorney as a review process?
I think that reviewing every single thing that goes out is probably not the highest use of municipal attorney time, but developing really clear policies and procedures at the outset, so that the people who are making those decisions, the people who are posting social media for their department, aren't doing a lot of guesswork. That it's these areas of expertise. Yes, go ahead. You're announcing a meeting time and place. You're announcing an event. You're announcing an activity. Really, really straightforward things. And then where there are kind of gray areas, kind of having your policies really well outlined, so that people are making very well-informed decisions, and then being available, whenever someone needs assistance. Like, hey, I'm not sure about this. Taking the time to work with folks to make sure that things are representing what the city is doing accurately and clearly.
Great, thank you.
Hello, Scotty again. I got another one off the cuff. I'm stuck on home rule and
Sure.
so Sitka's got 13 lending institutions, and the last half dozen houses have not been sold to locals. And being a squarehead, to me, it's like all the rules are written for the banks. And under home rule, just say, for example, that the city put out a petition so that people living in the trailer parks could build a second story right above their trailers, or throw out setbacks, or throw out minimum lot sizes, and using that home rule to re-script it and make the town for the people that are here, not for the people coming up from south. That every little new house that we're getting is being built way above the average Sitkan can purchase. And if you do come here, I'm going to be really looking to try to use this home rule to try to make Sitka affordable instead of just a refrain, a cliche that has been going on for quite a few decades.
Mhm.
I'll stand by. Thank you.
Sure. I absolutely understand that perspective and in many ways share it. A lot of the work I've been doing in the last year or two has been with housing organizations in Sitka. I'm on the board of the Sitka Homeless Coalition. I was on the board for the Sitka Community Land Trust. And then, as JJ knows, have stepped in to do a lot of policy work for them as they scale up their operations to handling millions of dollars of federal money. And where those federal laws and the state laws and the city laws cross can be really complicated. But those are issues I've been digging into pretty hands-on for about 2 years now. So I definitely appreciate that perspective.
Tim Pike again. So can you tell us what your hobbies are?
Sure. I have been involved in Sitka Cirque for a couple of years now. Not very good at it. It's really hard. But my oldest two daughters and I have performed, I think, in 2 shows together now, which has been really fantastic. Like many families in Sitka, we get out hunting, fishing. We have a cabin over at Baranof Warm Springs. Try to get over there when we can. And then, the kind of colder, darker winter nights were pretty board game oriented, family card games.
Awesome, thanks.
Yeah.
So in the past, you've represented clients with views potentially opposing the city's position. If hired, can you please explain how you will manage those relationships and then potentially switch to a potentially conflicting side of that point of view, defending the city?
Sure. I think that's kind of one of the weird things about being a lawyer is that your duty is to zealously advocate for your client, and that can be taking one side on one issue, another side on the other issue. And there's switching between sides, and then there's what is an actual conflict of interest. In terms of specifically conflict of interest, I would need to step down from the boards of directors that I'm on. If I was offered this position, I think a number of those organizations do a lot of work that would appear in front of you all in the municipal office. I'm not sure what your kind of internal standard is for conflicts. The judiciary standard is that you can't be the judge for a client that you represented for 2 years, if I'm remembering that correctly. And we kind of want to get that clock started as soon as possible. And I've started notifying boards that I've applied for the position. In terms of working on one side or the other, I've done both. I've been, an associate at a firm that was doing employment law from the worker side, and when I was with the school district was representing those interests from the employer side. And I'm not of the view that the employer is always right or the employee is always right. Every case has its own set of facts, its own application of the law. And when you're a lawyer for an entity or a person, your job is to do your best presenting that entity or that person's interests. And I have no problem seeing both sides of the picture and zealously advocating for my client.
Thanks. As a follow-up from that, you'd indicated potentially needing to step down from some of the boards on which you were involved. I understand that boards are a passion of a lot of people within the community. And how would you navigate potentially losing things that you are passionate about? Does the job become worth it at that point? And the reason I'm asking this is because I'm concerned about you as a person and you as the holistic overall well-being.
Sure. Yeah, I part of the reason I've gotten involved in the boards that I'm involved in is they tended to be at a point in their growth where my skills were useful to them. It's certainly issues I believe in, especially the housing stuff. I've been very involved with the Sitka Housing Network. I've been doing grant writing for the Land Trust as an employee for the past 8 months or so. but when you step down from them, you're not part of those organizations anymore. And I feel like I've contributed a lot to them, that my skill set has been valuable, especially for launching some of those organizations to their next level. But that's all been part and parcel of being a community member, wanting to be involved in SICA and SICA's, trajectory, helping that be a community that's still really good to live in, still really good to raise a family. And we're here for the long haul. We've got kids, in fourth, second grade and preschool. And so that the kind of long-term vision of how is this going to be a good community that continues to be a great place for people to live. This working with the city, advising you all as you're making those hard decisions, contributes to that as well. So it's not a loss so much as just a shift in perspective, and a shift in, instead of being kind of shallowly involved in a lot of things as my skills are needed, really dedicating myself to one role that's helping this community as it grows and changes.
Understood. Thank you.
Thank you for that answer. That cleared up some things for me. So describe your anticipated approach to working with assembly members, the municipal administrator, department heads, and other city stakeholders / entities as the municipal or SICA municipal attorney.
So my approach, kind of, as I said, comes out of legislative experience and then the experience clerking at the court, really, both of which are advisory roles. And so it's kind of a back and forth and a little bit of a dance of what are your needs and how can I fill them, and then what do I see popping up as needs, and hey, are these things of interest to you? But I do see it as akin to the law clerk role in that, sometimes there is a little bit of pushback. There's we want to do this. This is a great, amazing thing. And okay, hey, there are federal laws, there are state laws we have to look into and check out here. But I would not see myself as a no person. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that. That's illegal. You can't do that. It's too risky. I don't think that's how good work gets done. My approach tends to be much more how can we? What will it take? If we pursue this option or this option or this option, what do we need to do to get from point A to point B? If we choose point B, point A to point C, if we choose point C, and really, as you all set your policy priorities as a group, being there in support of you as the department head, city administrator are doing the work of running the city, bringing that, hey, within the constraints of the law, how can we accomplish these goals? Would really be the kind of tone and outlook I would like to bring to the job.
Okay, thank you. And just kind of a follow-up. I'll also, I guess I don't know if it's a question or a statement, but you're going to be working with assembly members who might have, ordinances or resolutions they want to work on. Then municipal administrators going to have things to work on. Department heads will have interests, which I'm sure they'll go up to their supervisor, follow the chain of command. And then other entities might have just, it's a lot. It's comprehensive. Sure. It's a big, comprehensive thing. And so I guess my question is, are you aware of how comprehensive this is?
I think I am. I was sharing the job with Mr. Hansen for about 6 months before he was hired full time. And then my workload at the court was comprehensive in a similar way. I was both a magistrate judge and a special master. So I was the entire misdemeanor court. I was the entire Fish and Game court. I was the traffic court. I was the probate court. I was the uncontested divorces court. I did all the child in need of aid cases. It was things that in large places have actual different courts. Like this is traffic court and they only do traffic. That was me. And so it was managing a whole bunch of different caseloads, prioritizing what needed to be done immediately, or dropping something because, hey, somebody's in the jail trying to stab people. We got to deal with this right now. And so it was kind of this constant prioritization. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I think this job can be very rewarding. Mr. Hanson sure liked it. He loved it.
Mhm.
Rewarding, but it's also very challenging. Just pulls on you in all sorts of ways, intellectually, physically, mentally, emotionally.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, okay, thank you.
So the way Kevin's question started, I thought he was going to steal my question, but he did change it as he went. So I'm going to talk about one of those things he started with is about writing ordinances. And I guess my question is more about how you would see the process going, because a lot of the times we have an idea of what we want to do, but we don't necessarily know how to write it. And so do you see it as more, tell me what you want, I'll write it down, or I'll give you what you want, or maybe, or do you say offering advice about pitfalls in such a, because it's kind of, you can do it either, okay, here it is, and it'll sink or swim on its own, or, hey, is there, or do you see offering advice as to the actual, I mean, not necessarily the feasibility of it, but the mechanics of it a little bit more?
I guess to answer that question, I'll speak to what I've been doing. Mr. Hanson approached me in the spring as his retirement was approaching to write some ordinances to try to get some things wrapped up. Mr. Leach is aware of this. I was tasked with writing the naming and donations ordinance. Mr. Hanson kind of set what the end goal was there, showed me some of the work Mr. Leach and other department heads had produced, and kind of spoke about what the end game might look like. And I came back to him and said, we can get to this end game, but I think we're doing too much work in one ordinance. I recommend splitting it into two along these particular lines, pulling that out. We had a lengthy conversation about why that might make sense, why that might not make sense. And then he eventually tasked me with writing it that way. And I believe that work was satisfactory. So yeah, I think it's back and forth. It's a conversation with you kind of setting the goals, me going and checking out, okay, for those goals, what I looked at what the state has done, what other municipalities within Alaska have done, and if there's any kind of outstanding examples from other states, having a good reason why those might be valuable. And then kind of coming back to you and saying, hey, here's the best way I see to do it, or maybe there's 3 different ways we could do this, and engaging in a conversation about the how that's informed by the research I've done.
Chris, you are up.
Okay. Could you give us an example of your ability to work under pressure and adhere to deadlines in the legal environment?
I can. So I was the magistrate judge when the gang shooting in Sitka happened. And I was on my first vacation ever after having 2 children and being in that role. And I got a call from a clerk of court that said, you need to get back here and do these arraignments. It's like, no, I trained my deputy magistrate. Like, he can't handle this. You need to get back. I flew home overnight from Reno, had to go all the way up to Anchorage and back down to make it to court on time to do it. If it was 1 or 1:30 arraignments. I showed up at 12 and I had the relevant police department there saying, there's been a shooting. We've got a bunch of people down in the jail. You need to arraign them all. There's 6 search warrants on your desk. We want the search warrants before the arraignments. And I had to take a beat and say, okay, this is a drug-related case. It's a gang-related shooting. This is going to federal court. The police are prioritizing the timeline for getting those search warrants done because they need to make sure they're getting it before the evidence disappears. But if I don't do these search warrants correctly, it doesn't matter if they get the evidence because they're going to get kicked out of federal court if I mess the search warrants up. And really just had to, on the fly, take the initiative and say, bring everybody back down to the jail. We're not doing 1 o'clock arraignments. I need to do these perfectly. They need to be done absolutely perfectly. Come back at 3 with everybody, and we are doing the search warrants after. I know that's not what you want, but this is how it has to be done in order for this to proceed correctly. and ended up, staying there till 10 or 11 o'clock that night, working on all the search warrants. And to my knowledge, they were all passed, they all passed muster. None of the evidence got kicked out. And that's now Alaska's first RICO case. But being able to take that initiative and say, I'm the decision maker here. This is on me. I need to balance that risk of the evidence disappearing versus the evidence getting kicked out. And it's on me to do this correctly, hit the order and the timing, and stick around till the job's done and get it done right. I think would be the example that jumps out the most strongly.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Great answer.
Thank you. Okay. Rachel, please give an example of how you've addressed a challenging situation or person during your legal career.
Other than what I just said, I think one of the things that can be really challenging is the relationship between the law clerk and the judge. You're the person that's expected to give pushback, the person that they're bouncing ideas off of. And I think one of the things I've learned both in the judiciary and with other bosses is not to take things personally if it gets heated. So I've had bosses where, you're discussing things and it's about the issue, and all of a sudden you're wrong, you're doing it wrong. And just kind of having the gumption to say, hey, let's take a break. Like, this isn't personal. We trust each other. We're reasonable people. Maybe you're hangry and you need a sandwich. Maybe I need some coffee. But taking the time to step back, not taking things personally, and then coming back to the table to discuss things. And then on the court side, having litigants get really angry in the courtroom. They don't like that you're sending them to jail, or they don't like that they've lost a case and been ordered to pay somebody money. And what I've found in that context, and I think it applies to kind of any public facing materials, is that if the policies are clear up front, the rules, the laws are clear up front, they're communicated clearly, they're communicated in a way that people understand, and the process is being applied fairly to everyone every time, then even if people are really angry, they can still accept the result. And sometimes you just have to own it. You just have to say, this is the result. This is what we're doing. I'm sorry you're displeased with the outcome, but the process was fair.
So clear, consistent communication.
Yeah, and having really good policies up front that you're applying every time.
Yeah, thank you, because that can very well happen in our dynamics. We've seen it just in my time on the assembly several times, and that's a very strong and solid approach. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Scotty again, got another one. Restricted deeds of sovereign land, specifically the risk taken on by the city right now, making people walk in the street with a sign in English that says pedestrians not allowed past this point, right on Catlian. And I could get that sidewalk opened up right now if the city would defend the last person born in that house against any frivolous lawsuits of the house falling on a pedestrian, falling on the sidewalk. That property is very valuable, and there are many people that think it should be theirs. And right now, the sidewalk is being closed as far as my efforts from an elder telling me that they want it closed, from other people pursuing ownership of that property and all the ones that go with that Luknahati property. Could you ever see the city writing somebody a letter saying, hey, could you open up the sidewalk that the city illegally put the sidewalk on your property decades ago? And that's why you are responsible, because the ground underneath the sidewalk is yours. But the city put the sidewalk there and built the street over people's property all up and down Catlian. Could you see that in the risk, how the city gauges risk? Because I don't think it's a consistent, like the little equilibrium of risk. Could you ever see the city, a municipality, writing somebody a letter that please let your sidewalk be open so that we don't kill a grandma with pushing kids in the baby carriage, or just making a political and public hazard, and then just going with it for years and years and trying to, comfort someone who's an elder and has all kinds of people swooping around, implying going to have lawsuits, this, that, and the other thing. Could you see that happening?
I guess the short answer is I don't know, because I'm not as familiar with that situation, as it's clear you are. You said at the outset that there were, kind of sovereignty issues, and I assume that means kind of between the municipality and the tribe. And that is one area where I'm weak, or did you mean simply land use with private owners?
No, it's just stemming from the Cobell decision where the Bureau of Indian Affairs awarded Sitka Tribe $1.58 million for the mismanagement of all kind of property along Catlean Street. And it's not really the municipality, and the obfuscation is the Bureau of Indian Affairs. And another one, hey, could we subpoena somebody from the Bureau of Indian Affairs to sit right in that chair and answer some questions so the whole community could get up to speed on an underserved neighborhood and how it stays perpetuated by initial federal mismanagement that's been admitted in court, but then goes on, and then it involves the city because the city's adjacent in many areas. But anyway.
I would need to research that. I just, that's not my practice area, so I don't know off the top of my head, but I sounds very, very complex and interesting. I'd be certainly happy to look into it.
Yeah, that'd be awesome because, it's really a career, people don't want to touch it because it's getting into their career time, and then it just gets kicked down the street. So you got BIA on both sides of the fence, and be happy to take you on a tour through Indian Village or through Sitka Village and explain to you the history of many decisions by the feds and the city that have made it a distressed area.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a very interesting history there. Absolutely.
I'm sure you're beginning to wonder, and I have a question about, what makes you interested in this position?
Sure. The short answer is that my kids are back in school. The little one's got a full-time preschool position, and so I'm available for full-time work again. And the second is that I did work for the job for 6 months in the past. I applied for it previously, and I think it's a great way to use the skills that I do have, as I said before, to help this community as it's facing so many challenges. Continue to grow and continue to develop and to be a great place to raise children. We're here for the long haul. And I as I said, I've had my hands in a lot of things a little bit. And that's really been a function of having small children at home and not having adequate childcare. And being able to go kind of deep in one role is very attractive. And the possibility of being in that role for long enough to really have an impact and use these skills that I've developed for the benefit of town is very attractive.
Thank you.
Just one last question from myself this evening, and that involves your singular direct report you would have if hired for this job. You do have a staff member assigned to the legal department. That role is currently filled. However, it may be open for hire in the future. Can you talk about your experiences hiring staff and then supervising staff below you?
Sure. I guess starting with supervisor role, at the court, I had a clerk of court who I had to work very, very closely with in the courtroom, and then interacted with kind of all the administrative staff out front. And then I was responsible for training the law clerk to become the deputy magistrate judge as well. In the work I've been doing with the land trust, we've hired on one more person in the time since I've been there, and I was deeply involved in that hiring process as well. And my approach to that tends to be to look for skill sets more than particular knowledge. I think a lot of times if you need someone who's organized and they've shown organizational and kind of mathematics and spreadsheet skills in insurance, say transferring that to banking is easier than taking someone with kind of deep banking experiences at the let's say kind of management level and getting them to learn how to do spreadsheets. So I tend to take a very kind of transferable skills. I obviously if somebody has direct skills, that's better. But you never, in a town Sitka size, you never quite have like that exactly perfect fit. And so looking for kind of skill sets, being able to train knowledge into those skill sets, as opposed to being very, very focused on specific knowledge and then hoping people will develop skills.
Thank you. Anything else with supervising staff?
Just trying to think. I would probably mostly just be at the court. I've been a contractor most of the rest of the time, so I haven't had direct reports in the contractor role.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rachel. This will also be my last question. Something you said kind of cued me on one of the questions we have here. What experience do you have working with Alaskan Native tribal governments and or addressing concerns related to Alaska Native tribal citizens?
Yeah, I brought that up a little bit earlier. It's mostly been through the court system. So dealing with the requirements of the Indian Child Welfare Act, having members of the tribe comment on child placement has been primary. I've also, it's kind of more of a soft answer than a specific legal answer. But Sitka has people of European ancestry, Native people, but there's a fairly large Mexican and Filipino subset of people as well. And I guess this gets back to communication, but adapting the courtroom style to account for differences in communication styles. So some cultures, each person, let's take the example of say an elder who's going under guardianship, they can't manage their own money affairs. Some cultures, it might be that each member of the family speaks once, gives their whole opinion, and then they're done, and then the next person speaks, and the next person speaks, and then it's done. And other cultures we've seen, each person gives their opinion on one topic and everybody goes around on that particular topic, comes back around on the next topic and comes back around on the next topic. And adapting the way that I took testimony in the courtroom to accommodate those cultural differences. I think kind of goes back to the being able to communicate with people in a style that works for them. And then on the housing side, with my work with the Land Trust and this large grant I just applied for on their behalf, I've been kind of working with BIHA pretty closely to talk about what the tribal housing needs are and how that could integrate in some of the grant writing I was doing for the Land Trust.
Thank you. And the reason why I ask isn't just because it's on the piece of paper here of questions, is that, the city and borough of Sitka has a very nice, healthy relationship with the tribe. We have an MOU and work together with them on many from time to time. And so that's a very important part of this position to if you don't understand or have experience, to learn and grow in that role with any kind of work that we do with the tribe. So just that part was a statement. So thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you.
Sorry, this is Tor again. So my question's about working with the community, not so much organizations, but individuals. Most of us city attorneys that I've worked with over my time in the assembly spend a good hunk of time talking to folks and explaining things and while it may not be technically part of the job description, it is part of the job. I mean, explaining things, dealing with the public when they come in, either not understanding or wanting to get something done, and essentially helping them in one way or another as much as we can. And so how do you see yourself handling that aspect of the job? Because it's going to happen. Somebody's going to walk into your office and say, I want to do this, or why are we doing this? That's part of your job. And even though like say, most of the time people would be in the rights to say, well, let's go to the assembly but that's not the way it's been done in the past and probably shouldn't be.
Sure. I think I'd be pretty comfortable in that role. I saw my role as a judge oftentimes being very explanatory. I'm a certified mediator and was able to use those skills. One of the nice things about kind of that lower level court compared to the superior court is you have the opportunity to help people kind of settle their case. And that takes a lot of communication skills, explanatory power, saying, okay, hey, this is what I'm hearing your interests are. This is what I'm hearing the other party's interests are. How can we kind of make the pie bigger here, find something that works for you all? And I think those skills would transfer well to the situation you're talking about where someone's coming in saying, I want to do this, or why is this happening? Just being able to stay calm, stay patient, and explain where things are at, where the person's goal are, is how to get from here to there. As I said, taking the legal complexities and really bringing it to a communication style, taking the time to do that, that works for members of the public.
Chris.
Yeah. Based on everything shared today and everything else you would like to add, what makes you the ideal candidate to serve as the Sitka municipal attorney?
I think that I bring a lot of skills that any other attorney might have, legal research and writing. But one of the things that you can't study because it takes time to develop is a sense of Sitka and a sense of the interconnectedness of town. I think even people that grow up in small towns somewhere else, you can still drive to the next town over, be anonymous in a coffee shop. And I see that coming in two ways. I think understanding the complexities, that it's not just a one-on-one relationship on the issue that you're having. It might be, you're testifying against each other at the assembly, but then that person is also coaching your kid's soccer team. And then you're also behind each other in the grocery store. I mean, I've sentenced people to house arrest on a DUI, and they were behind me in line picking up their food for their 3-day house arrest sentence as I'm picking up food for my kids on the way home from work. And it just takes time living here to get that sense of the real web of town. And then as a public figure, semi-public figure, to comport yourself within it. You can't study the experience of being the person who's sentencing people to, no alcohol while your case is pending, and then walking into the Mean Queen, everyone's head at the bar is looking up as they're like scurrying out the door because, oh my gosh, the judge is here. And, that learning how to comport yourself as a public person in a fishbowl just can only be done by experience. And I've been through that ringer.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Sure.
What has been your most significant achievement as an attorney?
I think there's two ways to answer that. I think as a Sitka attorney specifically, this kind of gets back to the question about boards of directors, but finding that my skill set really is valuable here, that as these organizations I've joined are going through those transitions, taking an organization like the SCLT and it was an idea, and now there are houses being built, and now there's congressional money coming in. And having been able to apply my skills to help get things that really impact the community and hopefully have a positive impact on the community off the ground has been really a powerful experience. And then just kind of more on the straight lawyer side, I've had two cases where I either really wrote the opinion, although I wasn't the judge publishing it, or wrote the briefing that informed the opinion that got appealed to the Ninth Circuit and were upheld on appeal. And that just feels really affirming that you're doing a good job. It was, years later, my supervisor, looked me up on LinkedIn. It's like, hey, that case you wrote, it's upheld. Was, kind of out of the blue and very affirming.
Great, thank you.
I'm good, but I wanted to ask you if, like Judge George, he used to bring the house down with one-liners. Are you writing a book on any of his one-liners? Like felony gun charges that the town loved it, packed courthouse. And, I mean, he brought everybody to their knees, but should be a good book.
Yeah, I'm not the author in the family. That's my husband. Um,
My last question is, what question have we forgotten to ask you?
I think something that I've seen come up in many contexts in Sitka, and it was so different for me than practicing in California, is conflicts of interest. So at the start, we didn't talk about whether I know any of you all. And how closely I know any of you all. I've been at Mr. Christensen's house for fine arts camp events as the spouse of a faculty member. Mayor Eisenbeiss and I were at swimming lessons together earlier in the summer. Ms. Carlson trained me in my role for the Sitka Community Land Trust. Those things in California, would be, you're supposed to be total strangers. Those would be things that 100% absolutely get you recused. But that's not the case here. That's not the case when I was a judge. Just because you're interacting with somebody in one of those many networky sort of ways, doesn't mean it's recusal time. Otherwise, you would never do anything, right? You'd be recusing yourself from everything. I can't work here and live here. And how to handle that. And I think that's another place where being part of the web of town and having, been a public figure, been a judicial figure, having had to handle those conflicts and recusal issues in the past is a skill you develop because it's so different than anywhere else. And so I think that's something that if I were advising you right now about how to go through the interview process, I would have advised you to bring up right from the start.
Okay.
Chris, just wanted to check in with you. Do you have any other questions this evening?
No, I do not.
Okay. So Rachel, just wanted to give you a chance to wrap up on your end. Do you have any questions for us that we may be able to answer this evening?
Yeah, I think it would just be kind of turning one of your questions around, kind of back on you guys. What has worked well for you in terms of the role of the city attorney? I imagine it could run anywhere from, somebody who's kind of sitting there silently, sending you memos ahead of time, before assembly meetings, kind of more behind the scenes, versus being very active at public meetings. What kind of elements of a relationship with the city attorney have worked well for this assembly so far?
So I'll start, and then if other assembly members have input, they're welcome to it. So to me, being impartial, what worked well in Brian's term is that he was impartial almost to a fault. There would be times where I would ask him for an opinion, and he would still be very impartial and give me the information I needed to make the decision. So that was definitely very, very helpful for me. And also just a voice of reason that was able to keep the city out of hot water. He was dedicated to making sure we understood the risks, and I think that that's very important from this job. We still want to take the risk, then we can do that. However, we were fully informed when we made that decision.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Rachel, for asking that question. It's a good one. So I agree with everything the mayor said completely. Brian is a very good man and a good attorney. What's most important to me is basically everything Stephen said. What's important to me is that if there's projects that are in the works that they're being worked on, or if you feel overwhelmed that you're not afraid to either contact assembly about, or just if you have an ability to, you'll have a budget, a discretionary budget for outsourcing, that you're not afraid to. I want to make sure stuff gets done. And I'm not saying like every second and everything should be updated immediately, but I would like things to be done in a timely manner. And then, yes, keep us out of trouble. Give us well-rounded advice. And I think, understanding the city is a plus in that way. So that's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, yeah, I've worked with a few different city attorneys, and I think about T. Cole and his ability to very early in the process to keep us out of court. I mean, to the point where we didn't realize he was doing it.
Mhm.
But to me, if you look back on his time, and it's every different and different challenges, but we didn't go to court ever. I mean, it was rare. And sometimes that was frustrating, but I think in the end of the day, all of our successful attorneys have had the ability to, gently keep us from getting in too much trouble. And sometimes not so gently, but and at the same time, getting things done. I mean, that's to me, I think you mentioned it, one of your other answers, that attorneys have a reputation, even the ones in my family, of always looking for why you can't do things. And because that's a good way to stay out of court. But at the same time, we've got to be looking for, how to get to yes. And so I would hope that we would have that as an attorney, we would have somebody who would manage those so often conflicting goals, because we do have to get work done at the end of the day. So
Absolutely. Thank you.
Chris, any feedback from your side?
Beyond what's already been said, something I've always appreciated, was Brian's ability to be available when I had questions. Actually, I generally was kind of a frequent flyer for asking him conflict of interest questions. But I'm also, I tend to not like emailing back and forth when I am working on a project. I like being able to go and get FaceTime. I feel like I'm able to get more stuff done or understand stuff better. Even if it's not FaceTime, just over the phone, a simple phone call. So to me, that's important, being able to have that more one-on-one conversations rather than just email. So yeah, that's my little bit of feedback, I guess.
Thanks.
Anything else for us at this time, Rachel?
I think that's it. Thank you. And thanks for having me.
Yes, and thank you as well. I understand you are on East Coast time right now, so it's a little bit later than the 7:15 we're currently at. So do
That's
appreciate the accommodation tonight, so that we can move this process forward. The assembly will have a discussion this evening about the interview, and we will be in touch to let you know the next steps. So I do appreciate your time this evening, and look forward and you will be hearing from us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
Oh, and there we got Chris back, looking like he's working again. All right, so then our second item tonight is a discussion direction on tonight's interview. We do have the ability to go into executive session if desired by the assembly. If we don't want to go into executive session, we will take a 5-minute break, or we could take a break and decide. Okay, let's take a break and we'll come back for item B. All right, well, the assembly is seated, except for Chris, he's still running around, but, see, I knew he had his earbuds in and he'd hear me, so. Looks like there's some trees close, so he must be on anchor now, huh? Yeah. All right, so back to item B then. I would recommend tonight that we do go into executive session, even if briefly to discuss this application. If there is nothing further that we need to discuss in executive session, then we can come back out and continue the conversation. But I would appreciate a motion this evening.
I move that we go into executive session. We have yeah,
I got it.
okay, go ahead. I don't.
I move to go into executive session to discuss subjects that may tend to prejudice the reputation and character of municipal attorney candidate Rachel Jones and invite in Human Resources Director Josh Branthover.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to go into executive session. Is there any public comment? Sarah, on the motion?
All right, on the motion to go into executive session, Mayor Eisenbais,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
and Mr. Celine.
Yes.
The motion passes 7-0. Chris, if you want to disconnect from Zoom, and then I'll call you when we get in room 4. Okay.
Motion to reconvene.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Are we not recording yet?
No.
Sorry, I got ahead of you.
Yeah. Having some technical problems.
That's all right. Sarah just wants to hang out here all night long.
Oh, wait.
Normally Sarah's the one going.
Yeah.
Short breaks.
Yeah, chop chop. Mm, well. You can go ahead.
Okay, so that everything is on the record here, motion to reconvene.
So moved.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We are reconvened as the assembly in regular session. So the assembly did meet in executive session to discuss the qualifications of our applicant, and we'll be moving forward with the process tonight. And then we'll go on to item C this evening. Discussion direction to schedule municipal attorney candidates for interviews if desired. As the assembly is aware, after scheduling our previous candidate for interviews, 2 other applications have come in. Those have been provided to the assembly. If the assembly is desirous of interviewing those candidates, I would suggest trying to get that done sooner than later so we can continue to move this process forward. It looks like the week of the 19th is somewhat available for most people. So 19, 20, 21, 22, with 20 and 22 kind of being our normal days that we meet. Does anybody have conflicts those days, preferences? Or I guess we should ask first, is the assembly desirous of interviewing either or candidate for an initial interview?
I'm interested in entering for both.
Both? Both. Yeah, anybody opposed to interviewing both of them? Okay, I felt the same way as well. I would like to do a round 1 interview with both the candidates. So that week of the August 19th, is there any conflicts, dates that work best for people? Okay, Sarah, it doesn't look like there's any. Chris, yeah, that guy. You got conflicts?
Wednesday, I know is an opener. But we're on a 2-on, 2-off rotation, so it's all over the place right now.
Okay, and understand work schedule as well. Would be happy to have you and understand if we can't on that. Wednesday is not a great day with liaison needs as well, so it probably wouldn't be Wednesday. But if you're saying if you open Wednesday, you would be fishing Thursday?
No, I'd be fishing Wednesday for sure. I will be fishing Sundays and Wednesdays for sure, and then more. I don't know. I'll probably be fishing about 5 to 6 days a week is my guess. So
good
busy,
news.
but I can do these Zooms.
Okay. Good news is we tend not to have meetings on Sundays. So you're in luck on that day. Sarah, can you check on the 20th and 22nd for availability of Centennial Hall and our applicants, and see what works best and then get back to us on that? Thank you much. I appreciate that. And then brings us to our last item tonight, item D.
I move to approve the hire of offer for Ron Vincent as the electric utility director as recommended by the municipal administrator.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the hire offer for Ron Vincent. Is there any public comment? Assembly deliberation, or John, I'm sorry, you had an introduction on this. I'm charging hard.
It's okay. Thanks, Mayor. It sounds like you're as excited as I am then, because I really am excited to bring this forward. I just want to give a quick summary. This has been a position that has been very hard to fill. Even before our last director, it was quite the effort to get someone in. We've pursued the nationwide search, going to professional organizations. And we received only 6 applicants after a pretty lengthy period of time. Of those 6 applicants, 2 of them were internal candidates that really just desired to serve in an interim role until, as we continue to search for a full-time position. The remaining candidates, 3 of them were selected for interviews. Of those 3, 1 took a position somewhere else before we had the opportunity to interview them. And the 2 other candidates, you know, as we saw in the last round, a lot of them, they weren't selected to move forward. You know, folks tend to think that coming into this utility is not really a COO role, which it kind of is. You're an operator there. They see it more as a CFO type function. So I was very excited to make this offer to Mr. Vincent, and I want to read an excerpt from my memo. Ron's been one of the most exemplary and professional employees I've had the privilege to work with. His outstanding performance has earned him the respect of the Assembly, his colleagues, staff, and the general public. In recognition of his exceptional contributions and to stabilize the electric department, I offered Ron the position of the Electric Utility Director. Ron graciously accepted, choosing to remain with CVS and keep his family in Sitka. I'm thrilled to retain Ron's vast knowledge, expertise, and unparalleled work ethic by incorporating him into this critical role within our leadership team. With over a decade of managerial experience in hydroelectric facilities and a proven track record, there's no doubt that the city and the electric department will thrive under Ron's leadership. So I'm asking you to approve this hire offer made. Thank you.
Thank you. Assembly deliberation.
I just wanted to say thank you to Ron, and very, very thrilled to hear it. Very excited. And I think we're very, very fortunate to have him here. And thank you, John, for offering him, and everything you said in that memo, I definitely agree with. So I'm going to be a definite yes.
A couple things from me. Number one, Ron, definitely have your, I understand your skills as a leader, and I'm excited to see you utilize your skills as a leader. Please work with HR in order to get some of the roles filled there. I understand that we're limping along, which is good. We have critical needs filled right now, but we still need some personnel, not only in electric department, but citywide. Hint, hint. Please work with HR director to get some personnel in the electric department that are going to continue your mission. John, I think this is more a question for you, but Ron, you may know as well. It's been my previous understanding that there was certain legal licensing requirements needed by top level staff within our electrical utility. It does not appear that there is any legal licensing from the resume that I saw that or electrical licensing or anything along those lines. John, are you aware of any lapse in, I don't know if it was an administrator's license or something along those lines? Are we aware of any lapse in licensing that we may have by bringing Ron into this role? And are we looking down a path to correct that if that's the case?
My understanding, Mayor, is that I'm not aware of any licensing that is required for a leadership role there in a personnel management type function. Yes, there are licensing requirements for journeyman linemen and some of the T&D engineering, like an engineering stamp if you're doing design. But as far as the leadership and managerial role, I think a lot of that is handled through our FERC licensing, so working through that process. But I'm not aware of any licensing requirements for the individual leading the workforce.
Okay, so if not him, then people under the umbrella
Correct.
continue to maintain the correct licensure for us to continue to operate the utility. Okay. That's all I have on this hire. If anyone has anything else. Scott?
I'm excited to have the software for public utilities applied to electrical department infrastructure and see when we should look at the pen stock and have a visual and maybe cycle the Howell Bunger valve and the whole deal.
Yeah, cowabunga valves. Let's let's do those. But yes, Ron, it is also my understanding that there is a backlog of some maintenance issues that you'll probably have to tackle here. I believe your asset management skills will come in immensely useful in those. So please, let's start working on a long-term plan for the electric department because we need to know how much this is going to cost us and the citizens need to know how much this is going to cost us because electricity, while it's important that my toilets flush, it's very, very important that we have electricity every single day for every operation in the municipality. So no small task there, making sure the lights stay on every single day. Anything else from the assembly? Sarah?
All right, on the motion to approve the hire offer for Ron Vinson as the electric utility director, Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeit,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Mr. Celine,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
and Mr. Yestad.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 on item D.
To bring us to persons to be heard, this is public participation for any item on or off tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes for any individual.
Good afternoon. My name is Austin Cranford. I first would like to congratulate Ron on his position as utility director. I'm sure the citizens will enjoy that since we seem to see frequent fluctuations with our utility bill. Maybe he can look into why even in the summer months, people are paying higher utility bills than the winter when they're not running anything. But the reason I came up here is actually regarding item A and item B. I didn't hear it mentioned during the interview, but I reached out to the Alaska Bar Association, and as of like a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, the candidate was under suspension with the Alaska Bar. The Alaska Bar refused to tell me why they were under suspension. I don't know if it was administrative or punitive. But I have a feeling the city should have known that before they interviewed and why that question wasn't brought up. So I'd like the city to look into that. Outside of that, it was brought up in the interview that the candidate knew 3 of the people on the assembly. I have a feeling that should have been brought up prior to the interview being conducted, as while it may not fall under the letter of the law as a conflict of interest financially, it is a conflict of interest through we'll say relationship. Other than that, that's all I have today. Thank you.
Anyone else for persons to be heard? Seeing none, that would bring us to adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We are adjourned.